of love, connecting the Father, the Spirit, and the Son. A beautiful dance of mutual trust, a constant outpouring of friendship and love. The circle expanded when Jesus came down. He let go of his right to a heavenly crown. He came as a servant, he came as a friend. He came to give life and not to condemn.
The circle of love includes you and me. Amazing grace, so free. The circle is always expanding, so kind and never demanding. We are standing in the circle of love. Amazing grace, so free. Standing in the circle as one. One love, one family.
A few years ago, I wrote a song called Circle of Love, which is talking about the Trinity, first of all, as a circle of love, of the blueprint for the relationships that we have with one another. So I see various circles of relationship, and of course the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are the model of perfect self-giving love, cooperation, mutual honoring of one another, mutual trust. And it also is a picture of inclusiveness. When we talk about our circle of connection with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and we see what Jesus models in his all-inclusive way of interacting with people from all nations, people from all backgrounds, breaking all of the religious standards of the day by loving non-Jews equally as much as the Jewish people, which was, of course, a huge contrast to the way things were done in those days. And it relates to our modern times, of course. We're in another political season where hate and discord is coming to the surface, and of course, there's so much tension all around the world between countries and between ethnic groups within countries and between religious groups within countries. And so one of the thrusts of this song is just that nobody gets left out, nobody gets passed over, nobody is seen as lesser than, and we're all made in the image of God. We're all equally valuable in God's sight. And so our goal is to show that same love unconditionally to one another that we see working within the Trinity. And it seems like the church hasn't always done a good job of doing that, right? And throughout the ages, big mistakes that have been made in the church, and even though, if you think of a circle and you think of the wideness of the boundaries that Jesus drew, I love that example of when he was on the cross, and one of the thieves that was on the cross next to him, he knew he was wrong. He knew he had done wrong, but he also knew that Jesus had done no wrong. And so he asked, Jesus for mercy and to include him in his kingdom when he comes into his kingdom. And Jesus responds, "Even today you will be with me in paradise." And here, what has this guy done other than simply reach out to Jesus saying, I need you, would you include me in your circle? So how do you see that, Carl, as relating to what's going on in the church today, what's going on in society today?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, like, when we look at the Trinity, we look at the relationship of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit as kind of the model of love and interconnectivity and cooperation and inclusivity, as you said. We see a very different ethos of how to connect with one another. Like, I think in the church, we have focused so much on kind of like right belief as an idea versus loving first, right? And so I think that if we actually just listen to the words of Jesus, where Jesus, when Jesus is asked, like, what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus is like, well, love God and love your neighbor. Upon these two commandments, the rest of the law hangs. And then when Jesus offers up a new commandment in John, it's like the new commandment is love one another. By this, the world will know you are my disciples. And I think the church has lost the message in a sense, not because we have failed to show up and do religious things. We've lost the message because we failed to actually love one another, which then is like a ripple effect that goes into the world. It's like if you throw a stone into a pond, you see those ripple effects go out and all the way to the edge, eventually even in the slightest forms to the edge of the pond. And I think when we talk about needing more love in this world, we're not going to solve it politically. We're not going to solve it by enacting the right laws or something like that. Time and time again, it's showing us throughout history that there will always be another tyrant. There will always be someone else to hate. And the only way for us to short circuit that is to really, I think, in that way, come and look at the example of God as seen in that relationship, and knowing that our call is not to necessarily write doctrine, but it's called to love. I think when we love, we'll see our doctrine in a sense correctly.
Yeah.
But if we focus in on what we think versus how we love other people, it'll just never line up.
His kingdom was not a political thing. He was one of a kind, a suffering king. His weapons were love and the power of prayer to lift the oppressed from the pit of despair. The Son showed his love through his death on a cross. He weeps with us now as we suffer loss. His table, a gift of his body and blood. He's inviting us all to a circle.
The circle of love includes you and me. Amazing grace, so free. The circle is always expanding and ever demanding. The circle of love includes you and me. Amazing grace, so free. The circle is always expanding and ever demanding.